So I'd like to welcome to the podcast today. I have the group Ultrakiller with me. Welcome.
Hi, hello.
How are you guys doing today?
Kind of good. Kind
Yeah.
of good.
Excellent.
Spring is coming, so
Yeah. But we're here today to talk about your new album. Now, I've just been sent this by one of my colleagues, and I absolutely fucking love it. I'm a big fan of electronic music as it is, but the fact that you've put, we'll go into more depth in a moment, but the fact you've put a story through it and a concept to it, absolutely, like, it falls right into my interests. I love sort of like detective thriller, dystopian, futuristic, all those sort of like, words in there. But you guys mix that with, like, you got this like really heavy synthwave sound, and like heavy guitars and stuff like that. But what I want to find out first, before we start talking about the album, can I get your origin story?
So it's not very complicated, but we played together for like 20 years almost, 20 years in several metal bands, and usually did the part of composers also in those bands. And after a while, we just felt like it's time to maybe move on. So things weren't looking as we wish they would.
Mm-hmm.
And so we parted with our last band and didn't really know what to do next at first. We knew we wanted to make some music, but I was already into electronic music and dark synths a bit, and thought about maybe starting a project involving mixing dark synth with heavy guitars and riffs. But I didn't really know if that could be done. So we started, looking closely on YouTube and other things, and searching if anybody plays this live. Is this doable? Will this work?
Yeah.
And we stumbled upon a few bands. We saw Carpenter Brute's Ultrakiller video, and we said, "Man, that's like metal as fuck," although there's no guitars. But so immediately, like, it clicked. So we started the project like a month later. Just got the necessary stuff out of the way and started making music. We didn't really know what would come out of it. We wanted it to be dark, but also a bit nostalgic and involving some 80s influences, but maybe not, palm trees and stuff, but more like horror stuff and this kind of film noir aspect, like in Blade Runner, for example, something like that. So the first album was more of I think you can hear that there's still a lot of searching going on that album, and with the second one we have like a really clear vision.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, let's talk about Death Trap, which is the new album. Like I said before, I absolutely love it. There's this the story running through it. And I don't want to spoil it for anyone on that front. I mean, but I'm going to tell people now, go listen to it, go find it on the streaming services and stuff, and then come back to this. But what can you where did the idea come? I mean, like you say, you like that kind of like film noir, Blade Runner-esque sort of style of things. I mean, I'm a big fan of the authors Richard Morgan, Philip K. Dick, who's obviously, wrote Blade Runner, and that sort of ilk of like sort of dystopian, like cop thrillers, if you will, so serial killer type stuff. So like for the actual like story that goes through the album, where did that idea come from?
Where did that come from? Well, I think that, at first, when we started to make tracks for the album, there was no story. So there were just, we made like 30 tracks or something like that. Started choosing the ones which have potential and we'd like to work on further and so on. But they were pretty different in tone, and we didn't know if they would sit well together as an album. And we like doing whole albums, which we always wanted to do something that you can listen from start to finish.
Yeah.
And it ties together nicely, and the music tells a story also. And then we thought that we could add some storyline, because we're fans of concept albums. I mean, we were before, we always thought maybe not now, maybe it's a bit too difficult to do this, but finally it was time to make one. I don't know if you know Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche.
Yeah.
So that's like one of our favorite albums, and the storyline there is also very cool, and it ties the tracks together nicely, and it's a great album to listen from start to finish, you know. Yeah. And the concept of the story with a serial killer, I don't know, we always liked those kind of stories in films, in books, and so on. So and we thought it would sit well with the vibe of a vibe of a slasher movie or a serial killer movie, something like that. And like you say, you brought up, for example, Philip K. Dick and other authors, but the story is really simple. Our story in this album is very simple. It's like a story from a slasher movie. It's just set in a different world, you know. It's set in a dystopian world just because we like it, and we feel the music fits that well, so that narrative. But we've always been fascinated kind of by stories. I think many people are with actual serial killer stories, you know. So we recently saw a documentary on Ted Bundy, and it kind of, even the girl's name, when we were checking out the possible names for the female character, we started looking through names of Bundy's victims, just to make it more like, you know, set in that kind of setting.
No, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it's like, I mean, the story alone, I love that concept, because when I was back many years ago when I was in a band, our first album actually had a story running through it as well. We were sort of on the sort of like new metal wave of things, but we did like a mock kind of like fairy tale through it, you know, like a Prince Valiant and a princess and all that kind of stuff. Sounds really corny at the moment compared to this.
Something like Blind Guardian, you know?
Yeah. And that's why I really gravitated to this album. Like, the music as well is fantastic. I'm loving Destination Hell. I love that track. And Devil Dance as well. And another one that begins with D, actually, Death Trap. But those tracks, I mean, I've got an affinity for that kind of like crossover sound of electronic and rock music or metal music. I have a radio show that specializes in that sound, which is how I know the person that contacted me about you. And it's sort of like when it kind of combines that synth wave as well, because there's been a sort of like I've really wanted to bring synthwave into my show, but it's all quite light and you know, it has that retro feel, but it never had that real grit to it like you guys have got with the heavy guitars, the big riffs, all that kind of stuff. And now I can, which is great. So you're going to get some airplay on a rock station here in the UK. I'm trying to sort of push you on some others as well, see if they'll give you some as well. But no, I run this weekly mix show, and it just sort of, I just, when I heard it, I was like, this is going to work. So but those particular tracks will really like stand out for me. I mean, the whole album as a whole, absolutely loved it.
Great. We just, you know, we were trying to make something maybe a bit different, right?
Yeah.
Than there already is, because there are a lot of artists that combine, you know, metal or rock with electronic music. I listen to a lot, like the whole industrial scene, and or others like, you know, Nine Inch Nails. I always loved everything by Reznor, but it's kind of different, you know, and it's not the same. There's also synthwave bands or synthwave or dark synth artists that we we did that did, I mean, encourage us somehow to start this, because at first when I was listening to this kind of retro electro stuff, just for, you know, for chill out reasons before, but mainly we're like mainly metal heads,
Yeah.
day to day. But I did listen sometimes, and when I first heard, like I said, Carpenter Brut was the first one I heard, and I thought, man, that's like, he's got song structure. Actually, it's not just like you know, EDM kind of track. It's done like with song structure, but just without vocals, and those synths sound like they were playing heavy riffs. And that was the first one. The second one was because then I was starting to look. I was sending over to my buddy who's sitting back there. He won't be contributing much because he doesn't speak that much English, but I'm sure he gets everything we're saying. So, and so we started this back and forth, and the only guitars that were in like typically synthwave acts were like, you know, just solos or like typical 80s solos, you know, and nothing heavy. And then I found Irving Force. I don't know if you know the guy. Yeah, he's great. So I think before he was like a thrash metal vocalist or something like that. So he gets it too. And he's got like heavy riffs and thrash vocals on some of the tracks. It's a great mix. And we saw his live show. Then we've seen Dance with the Dead, which also does some more riffs. We actually went to see them live once to see a live show. So it was our last show we saw before the whole COVID thing was Dance with the Dead. And it was like a metal show, you know, exactly. Yeah. So that's what we wanted to do, like make a small, you know, not start another band, because bands after a few are very, you know, you get fed up with it because there's too many egos, too many, you know, fighting around stupid shit. And right now we just do what we were doing like for the past 20 years, like making music, and we understand each other well. Yeah. So we have absolutely no problems. We trust each other with music. So, you know, we've been friends for so long that we can, you know, we don't even argue that much anymore, because even if let's say one of us comes up with a riff or a melody and the other says, oh man, that sounds like shit, it's you know, throw it away, it's not a problem. So I think that could contribute a lot to the style, and I hope, you know, we can start going this way further, and that there will be live shows, because I think that would be kind of a strength that we could have live shows, and we really miss it.
Yeah, it's been a tough year all round, I think, for well, especially us here in Europe. It's been especially tough. Have you guys, obviously, you know, during the sort of like, I don't know what it was like over in where you are, but what are your plans ahead of this? Have you actually like got anything solidified, if you will, or is it still kind of up in the air where you are?
Well, yeah, we do have plans. I think you have to have plans, you know,
Yes.
because if you don't plan ahead, then you die.
It's
I
very
mean, yeah, you have to keep moving. And so we're like, right now, we're just, we have a few fun projects that we want to do. One of them being completely not involved with synth music. We just want to play some heavy riffs, make a maybe like a metal cover that we can share. Then and just to vent, you know, because after an album, we spent a lot of time doing this album. I don't know, I really admire some artists that can make an album in like a few months and then take a month off and do another one. It's like crazy. And in the electronic music world, I see it a lot. You know, but we're used to working long on an album. It's like it took us a year, so the next one probably will take at least another year. But so we have to vent a bit and then start working on the new one.
Yeah.
In the meanwhile, you know, record some fun stuff like live playthroughs of the tracks and so on, but just for fun. And really, it's difficult to plan ahead more because we did plan after the first album. Our initial plan was to, you know, record the first album and start touring locally, because we didn't really realize that we can have some kind of recognition, you know, internationally. And right now we get a lot more interest abroad because, you know, of streaming and Bandcamp, of course, which is a like amazing platform for music. And so and we don't play live, so because we can't. So locally, I don't know if anybody knows about us here where we live. I mean, I know a few people, but so we were planning to start touring like immediately after the first album. We started, you know, practicing heavily those tracks from the first album. We got a live set ready and everything, and all the gear and stuff. And then, because we started making the first album, it was still kind of a normal world, you know. When we wrote one track, which was titled Epidemic, and we put a little bit of also dialogue at the beginning, some news taken from like zombie films and mixed with coronavirus news. But that was still the beginning. And it was funny because when we released the album, it was already, the pandemic already hit. And everyone was like, oh, too soon to make like a joke out of it. Or, this is nothing new. Everybody's making tracks about COVID now, right? But it was like, when we wrote it, it was just a bit of a joke, you know? It didn't seem that it will be this serious and that the world will like go to shit. And now, so we didn't tour, obviously, so we thought, okay, let's make another album, just fuck it, okay. And we had to do something. And so I think it turned out for the better, maybe. So we have more material and we kind of could focus on like some producing skills and mixing and everything like that. So we had a lot of time to do that, obviously. And but now we feel this would be a great time to like, play some shows. We got made a lot of friends in the so let's say dark synth for synthwave community in Europe, and it would be great to tour with those guys and just, you know, because everybody wants to. You know, we'll see how it goes.
Good luck with all that. I mean, I'm trying to be like, I want to be as positive as possible in as much as like hoping that the shows sort of start to come back and everything sooner. Obviously I know it's kind of like we like here in the UK there is a plan where we've just come out of heavy lockdown, but we're still under some kind of like limited lockdown. it's very complicated. But you know, I'm seeing like tour dates over the summer and things like that in the UK, and I'm just like, please let them happen, because there's just such a need for like musicians like yourself to get out there, and obviously, like you say, you want to vent, but you also want to get this art you've produced, you want to give it to people like physically in the room.
Exactly. We're kind of used to that, you know, because before, well, still playing in traditional, so let's say, bands,
Yeah.
we were really used to the cycle. You know, you write an album, rehearse it, go into a studio, record the album, and then you prepare for live shows, and you do like a tour and promote the album, go out, have fun with people. It was great. The live part was, I think, the best thing about it always. And you get to know a lot of people. You go around and see places, you know, and you meet people that really enjoy your music, like face to face. It's nothing can replace that, you know. So it's very missed. And now it's right. We don't have, because it was a natural way to, you know, to process the stuff that you created and bring it out and show it to people, get some feedback, some actual real life feedback, and then, you know, and you had a way to clear also your mind, and then you were ready to make something new. And now you have to find just other ways to do that, right? So, but you know, we're hopeful too, though it's the same here.
Yep.
So I think it's the same in the rest of the world also. Nobody knows what to do, and the governments all just like have shitty ideas, and it changes on a week-to-week basis here. So, you know, we've got strict lockdown now too.
Okay.
So almost everything's closed.
Okay.
You know, except churches.
Of course. You know, of course, where people like to, you know, congregate and spread the virus. And I'm not just talking about religion. But
well, you know, you just look around our, you know, our living space here. So you can probably tell what we think about that. Okay, let's not get into it.
No, I can see it. It's fine. But cool. I've got a couple of questions left for you, if that's all right. What I want to find out from you are your 3 top albums, or 3 albums that shaped you. So I'm sort of like talking about the one, like when you heard this album, you really wanted to be in a band. That sort of like pivotal moment in your life. What 3 albums could you kind of like sum those up with?
Yeah, well, that's not really that easy. That's not an easy. We both listen to a lot of stuff, and it's changed over the years, you know. So, but and I'll be speaking for the both of us, but I think we got like a very similar taste in music. So I'd say one band that I think we both listen to and come back to the old albums and like constantly listen to it for a long time is Lamb of God.
Yep.
That's a band that, and their and the album Ashes of the Wake. It's like a wonderful album. I mean, it's simple. The music is very simple, but they are consistent, and they're just so great guitar players, and bass player and drummer. Like the whole band is exquisite. I mean, and always it's always a treat. I like to play that album all the time, and well, you know, I think that both of us, when we started out like playing guitar and stuff, it was, of course, Metallica. Like, so I think for me, I don't really play that well because you know, there's 2 of us. One plays guitar like much better. I played bass for a long time, But I, of course, initially started playing guitar, but I was so shitty they told me I have to play bass. But the band that started it was Metallica. So, and I think it was either Ride the Lightning or Master of Puppets, one of those two albums.
Cool.
So you can pick one. I think Master of Puppets is better. And for, well, let's say it's not maybe a pivotal moment like that, but an album that we both loved, and it was, so this will be the third one, let's say, and it was a game changer in terms of listening to entire albums. It was Opeth and Watershed. Watershed was like, and it's really hard to put them in some kind of category because do they play prog rock or metal or I don't know, black metal or what kind? Because there's like so many influences on that album. Sometimes in one track you can have a totally different mood, and it's amazing. And I don't really like any other of their albums that much. It was, I think, one of the greatest albums ever, and I really like to come back to it too. So, so there's that.
No, I mean those are three solid choices right there. I mean, Lamb of God, I love that band. Again, like you say, they've been a sort of powerhouse for a long time, and they don't have to overcomplicate things in order to sort of get that.
I mean, it's great because it sounds, I mean, when you listen to it, you don't see how actually complicated the playing is. It's like technically it's not easy. I mean, I don't know how they come up with that stuff for so many years.
No, it was like I had the pleasure of having Randy on my show last year, and it was one of those moments where I'm like, I'm talking to the guy from Lamb of God.
That's amazing. I've seen some of his interviews, and he sounds great. I mean, he seems like a great guy, honestly.
Yeah, he was. And it totally blew me away how nice he was as well, which is always a surprise with these things. So, but Metallica, Master of Puppets, and Ride the Lightning, I'll take both. Both fantastic pivotal albums for a lot of people. They are, I mean, Metallica, I've loved Metallica for years. Again, they're just one of those bands that have kind of ridden the waves of metal and rock and just kind of kept going. So, and Opeth as well, like stunning band. Again, like the sort of the songwriting aspect and the technicality and what do they make? Is it prog? Is it black metal? Is it is it just like epic cinematic landscape stuff? And
it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You just put the album on and you're like blown away. It doesn't matter completely what style it is, but if you have an open mind for music, well, if I can just give one honorable mention to those, it was because let's say we covered the metal part. This is for me personally an album that got me into electronic music, and it's the soundtrack to Blade Runner, actually.
Okay, cool.
And I think I listened to it like 10 million times. When I was still a kid, I played it when I went to sleep. So every day, every single day, falling asleep to the Blade Runner soundtrack, and it's also, I think, one of the best movie soundtracks. I think I even heard the music before I've even seen the movie, and it's amazing. So that's kind of different worlds.
I mean that is a fantastic soundtrack as well. I mean, it's one of my sort of like film favorites, if you will, on that front. It's like my sort of weird story of it. I heard a sample from it before I saw the film or heard the soundtrack as well. There was a drum and bass artist called Dillinger, I think it was, from here in England, and they did a track called "The Angels Fall," "The Angels Fell." And if you listen to that, if you get a chance to listen to it, you'll hear it. You'll hear exactly what I mean. There's just this sample he looped in it, and it's straight out of Blade Runner's soundtrack. And it's just like 3 or 4 seconds, but it was enough to kind of like, oh, and then I watch Blade Runner and then I hear it and I'm like, oh, and then I hear that and then go from there. But yeah, no, it's that's an amazing soundtrack. What did you make of the follow-up to Blade Runner, the 2049?
It was okay. I mean, well, funny thing is that when we I think we both rewatched the original. I mean, the first Blade Runner, and there's of course like 2 versions floating around, or even 3, so to speak. They have different endings and so on. I think it was director's cut version. So it was funny because one version had the voiceover with Harrison Ford, narrating everything like in a film noir.
Yeah.
Which was kind of corny too. When you rewatch it, the visuals are astounding. The music is astounding. The story, I don't know. I read the story, the short story that Dick wrote, which it was based off of potentially, but it's very loosely based off of it.
Yes. Yeah.
And there are so many better Philip K. Dick books and stories and whatnot. But the story was kind of, I don't know, it was not that great when you rewatch it now, without all the nostalgia surrounding it. It's, I think story-wise, it didn't hold up that well. It doesn't hold up that well. But the visuals was most important in that movie, and the cinematography was like mind-blowing, and the use of lighting and everything. And I think in the new version, with the, I don't know how to call it, sequel maybe, it was, I think they held it up. I mean, visually it's stunning, and all the same techniques are used. It looks like it was, it was shot the same way, and so on. And also the visual effects, which were a lot of them done on set, like in the original. They did most of that, no CGI, just models and scale models, and so it's very nicely done. But I just went through it once, and I don't think I'd watch it again. The new version. Yeah. I don't think I'd watch it again, and I'm not a big fan of Gosling. I was up to Drive, but then I've seen a few movies with him, and I just have the feeling he's the same in every one. So maybe that's it. I really liked Harrison Ford in the original. I don't know. It was nicely played out.
Yeah. Did you happen to catch Altered Carbon at all? It was a Netflix made TV show. It's very Blade Runner-esque.
It was called Carbon. Well, check out Modified Carbon. No,
it might be called that. It might be called something slightly different. It was one of my favorite authors, which
Altered Carbon.
Yeah.
Oh. That's it, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah, it was kind of good. It had, and this one's I like a lot of. I think I watched every possible cyberpunk movie and anime possible because I really like the vibe. And there's not so much of it, and not so much of it that is any good. And read every comic I could get my hands on. So think that Altered Carbon was pretty well. I could recommend it to anyone. It's who likes that kind of vibe, and it's got the same inspiration from film noir as Blade Runner in terms of visuals, because it's also based on a book. So story wise. It's based on a book, but visually it's really got that vibe. And I did always like those detective movies, those old film noir pieces, and yeah, so yeah, I liked it. And I can also recommend to anyone who likes the cyberpunk stuff and that kind of feeling. As far as you know, I was never a big comic book reader, but I read a few. I started reading comic books when I was in my 30s already,
Okay.
so which is weird, but that's how it is. And so, the Transmetropolitan is like, it's a great novel.
Okay.
So I could recommend it to anyone. It's like also set in a cyberpunk world, and I won't spoil it to anyone, but really,
Cool.
guys, Transmetropolitan is great if you like this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've written it down. I'm going to check it out. I don't think I've checked that one out yet. So yeah, no, I'll find that one. I'll fish it out somewhere. So cool. Well, I've got one last question for you, if that's all right. What are your hobbies away from music? So when you're not producing any kind of music for Ultrakiller or anything like that, what do you kind of do to kind of separate yourself from it or even get away from it?
Yeah, we've got too many hobbies, you know. Both of us, I mean. So it's like well, lots of stuff. So one of us does photography, film editing, and actually we both did till the moment. But now it's kind of one of us does most of the visual stuff
Yeah.
for the whole project also, and apart from that, well, he has his motorcycle.
Okay. Yeah.
Obviously not now.
Not right now. I can see that.
We're getting there. It's going to be warm soon. I did do a lot of shooting, like sports shooting.
Yeah.
But now also everything's close to hell, so we can't do that. Started riding a horse lately. So that's a new hobby. They didn't close that yet, so
Yeah.
but you know, a lot of stuff like sports, movies.
Yeah.
But music is, I think, music takes time away for anything else. Yeah. Really, it takes up like 90% of our hobby time, and like we're both, you know, maybe you can't see that, but we're old folks, you know. We're not like teenagers. We don't have a lot of time on our hands, you know. We have families to support and shit. We gotta make some money, and then also I think not one of us can imagine life without making music, so it's never gonna happen. So it's always gonna be there. The other hobbies, you know, they just come and go.
Yeah. The music is the constant. Cool. Well, Ultrakiller, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Good luck with the album and all that kind of stuff. I hope once everything is sort of like, you know, lifted and you guys are there, you're playing here in England or anything, I will be there watching at least. And yeah, I look forward to hearing more from you as well.
Yeah, thanks. Nice talking to you. Thank you for having us. I hope to see you on tour.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.